I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States and justice for all.
First item on our agenda calls for citizen comment. If there's any member of the community that is here that would like to speak with us this evening on anything on the agenda or anything at all, you can come to the podium, state your name, and tell us what you think. Citizen comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. We will handle the consent agenda as one item unless a member of the council or a member of the audience wishes for us to address something individually. The items in the consent agenda are to approve the minutes from the July 11th meeting in 2018, approve the 2018 warrants number 24 through number 27 totaling $1,210,620.69. Item 3 to approve the Maine Municipal Association annual election ballot, and item 4 to the request for Emera Maine for an electrical easement for Northeast Packaging Company. Does anyone wish to pull anything out and handle it individually? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Madam Chairman, I'd recommend we accept the consent agenda as approved, presented.
I have a motion.
Oh, I'll second it then.
Second. I have a motion by Lee, second by Craig. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda calls for new business, Land Use and Development Code Ordinance.
Council, this is put together, and Ken's been working closely with the zoning board and with the planning board. They want to hold a public hearing to review some of the changes we're looking to make to this document. As you can see, it is a hefty document that we have here, and it's been a while since we have updated this. What we found is that part of the terminology that I used in this has been very hard to administer. So by looking at the definitions and having them clarified, it will resolve a lot of the issues that we've had in the past. These are the problem areas we've had with the land use document. So we think that making these changes will make it a little bit more business friendly, and also the definitions have been somewhat outdated since last time we looked at this also. So the first time that we passed this was back in 1979, so obviously a lot of things changed. So this is, the zoning board had a sit-down meeting with the planning board, multiple meetings I believe, Ken, and with staff, and looked really hard at what some of the problems were. So by altering these definitions, we should be able to resolve a lot of our problems that we've had in the past.
So these changes need to be in front of a public hearing. So we need to motion to have a public hearing for the proposed changes.
Yes.
Will this be during the next council meeting?
Yes.
It's not a separate public meeting?
No.
No, just a public hearing. It'll be a single public hearing to revise the Land Use Development Code Ordinance.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we schedule a public hearing during the September 5th, 2018 council meeting to review the proposed revisions to the Land Use and Development Code.
Second.
Motion by Kevin, second by Lee. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Second item of new business is the capital improvement plan.
So Council, in front of you with a teal color is the capital improvement plan. Usually what we do is unveil this before we get into the budget season and give a glimpse into what some of our capital improvement plans demands are going to be for this upcoming year. So I don't know if we want to take some time and just look at some of the highlights. We do have, not all the department heads could be here tonight, but certainly with the ones that we do have here, we could start talking. In the memo, is very similar to what I used last year. This isn't a document that we use for a funding mechanism. It does change dramatically during the budget process. A lot of the funding models that we use here are for there's FAA funds, there's grants that we're looking for this, there are some loans, and the other big place is the general fund money raised through taxation to offset some of these projects here. So Pat has, although it is a large document, it is a lot smaller than what it has been in the past. It's easier to read. So on page 2, when it starts looking at outstanding debt, maybe we could take a quick look at that. You see that we have the bonds that we have currently out. It starts with a public safety building, that we toured earlier today. We issued that bond in 2001. The original amount was $2.6 million, and it's going to mature in 2021.
Public safety, is that what we toured today, or the
Oh, I'm sorry, Public Works Garage. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that, excuse me, that's, yeah, I looked at the wrong line item. So that is 2025 when that matures, and the balance is $619,000 left in that amount. Public safety building, that's 520 left. Landfill expansion is 4.7 million, matures in 2041. The form on the ice making equipment, which we installed in 2015, it was a 15-year note. It's going to mature in 2030, and the balance is 312 as of July 1st for the payment. The community center, of course, we just issued that back 2 years ago. We're looking at 6.9 million that is remaining on that note at a rate of 2.72. So total outstanding for that list is 13.1 million that we have. And below it, of course, are the mobile equipment, the loader and the plow truck. Combined, those are just below 300,000 what we have. So in the next few years, you're going to see a pretty drastic reduction in some of the major building renovation projects that we've done. So it'll be nice to get that off the books. And on the following page, Pat put down the bonds outstanding, broke it down for the various years. So look at what the notes are. After the next section, it's the fixed asset summary. It goes back to 2013 to show where we are. You can see there's a considerable increase in our fixed position. In 2019, we're at 59 million, and you fast forward to 2017, and our fixed assets grew up to $70 million. A lot of that has to do with the airport improvements that were FAA funded, and also the community center. So some of this was taxpayer funded, but a large portion of it was FAA improvements that we've done over the past few years that Scott was able to obtain for funding. And the next section is a little bit of the explanation of the different categories of funding we have. In green, GF, that stands for General Fund. In yellow, and this is throughout the document, this is sort of a table to take a look at. In yellow is grant funding. In purple is TIF, that's TIF, tax increment financing. That's our remaining, our last TIF that we have that's still on the books is the Hampton Inn. The rural roads, the URIP, that's that's funding we get for the state that goes back towards our paving project. So we get approximately $188,000 each year from the state for paving our roads. It's not, obviously what we use for funding is a lot more than that, but that's what the state puts together. The one that you can see if you look across FAA grants, that's one of the largest. I'm happy to report that's one of the largest sums that we get. That is not. It's not taxpayer funded, and donations. Since we're not doing any major capital campaigns, we finished with the playground and with the splash pad / community center. We aren't looking at doing any major campaigns. So in the near future, we're not anticipating any major funding coming in through donations.
I think it's fair to say that all of this is taxpayer funded, but not property taxpayer funded.
Correct. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Other pocket.
So the next section, it's 5 pages. This is the overview. It's a summary of table broken down by department. So the first column, you're looking at the airport and the various projects that Scott's looking at doing for the next 5 years, and where those funds are going to come from. So right now for 2019, he's looking at reconstructing the GA ramp. 3.7 million is coming through FAA money. You're having state funding put in there too. The other major project, crack sealing, and the hangars that were recently approved. You're looking at 277,000. That's gonna come out of the Presque Development Fund. So for the total of what he's looking for 2019 is 4.3 million. 3.7 of that is going to be through the FAA funding. City Hall, looking over at the next page. Annually we do computer updates. This is for now, it's for the whole city. So last year, just to refresh your memory, we're now doing it for all departments. Before it was just city departments, and now we're also looking at the PD also in that, incorporated in that. So that's $12,000 a year, and we're on a 3-year schedule for most of our computers for replacement. City Hall renovations. There's more detail on pages 13 and 14. I don't know if we want to take this opportunity to take a look at those pages to see what, at the previous council meeting you asked to take a serious look at what needs to be done with City Hall, and so I outlined over the next 5 years what some of those major projects are going to be. Such things as the fire escapes is what we've looked at.
13 and 14 in summary, yeah?
Yes. So a quick review of what we've done in the past. In 2008, we did the metal roofing upstairs, and that's annually checked by the company to make sure. They just did that 2 months ago. Went up there and to make sure that it was still performing correctly. 2009, we did the lobby area, the rubber tile that's holding up very well on the first floor. 2013, we upgraded some lights. 2014, we replaced the front steps. Remember, the concrete was being affected by the salt, so we put new salt. We put sealant to prevent them from corroding future. We do that annually. And 2016, we came in compliance with some of the fire codes and created those automatic closing doors throughout the 3 different stories. So we have been putting money into this building, but when you flip over to the next page, it gives a detail of what we're looking at for the, as I said before, the next 5 years. There's 3 fire escapes that we got estimates. It is a year old at this point, but they estimated to build new ones were going to be $98,000. So there's 2 fire escapes on the 3rd floor, and there's 1 fire escape on the 1st floor. It's on the north side that we took a look at. We also got an estimate on what it would take to rebuild it, but due to the fact that it would require more work to abate the paint and whatnot, they estimated it was going to be, I think, $120,000 to just repair what we had. So it's cheaper to build new, is what they're estimating. In the past years, that figure has been $50,000 is what we've been asking for, but looking at the next few years. And these are put in no specific order. I'm not saying that we replace the fire escapes, but there's been concerns about the air quality. And obviously you can see almost every one of the office have been using air conditioners, and they're not efficient. So the idea is, I don't know if we want to look at central cooling system or looking at heat pumps, but I did put an estimate that we had from an older report that it's about $120,000 looking at those different directions. In 2021, we should make some ADA improvements to the door handles, make them compliant. The bathrooms have not been done except for the one that there was water damage, so we're looking to update 4 bathrooms and put a bathroom on the first floor for the public. Repoint brickwork was something from a report that was given to us a couple years ago, and also replace some of the flooring that's damaged on the various floors. So the total for 2021 we're looking at is about $60,000. 2022, we've talked about window replacement. So what we would plan to do is open up the windows at City Hall to their original size. The inserts that we have right now have been reduced, and it looks like fiberboard was put in there. Fiberboard's starting to deteriorate, so the idea is there's 32 on the east side of the building, 22 on the west side, and 1 on the north side that we would replace. The problem is that some of the work that was done, you can see from the example from this window, the interior work, there would have to be some interior work to match up to the outside of that window. So when they built the windows, they reduced the inside opening too. So we would have to address some of those in these offices. So I put $20,000 to accompany that project because I know there's going to be some work that needs to be done on the inside. We have repaired our heating system. There was a crack, so we replaced some of the parts on that, but I don't think that we can ignore the heating system, so I'm looking at 5 years that we would have to replace the heating system. And the contractor has identified some areas that we could improve the efficiency with the heating system, including doing automatic temperature controls. Most of them are just dials on the walls, and it's not very, the zoning could be improved. So that's, if we're looking at staying at City Hall, that's a taste of what we could be looking at for future costs if we want to stay here. So it is a sizable amount that we would have to look at.
Really, these all look like pretty immediate costs, and you've got $450,000 laid out here off a report that was done in 2015, mostly. So easily could be half again as much into this building, and look, I think that the council's got to decide if they're going to stay or go, you know, because you're looking at $750,000 to $1 million that really should be done, and you got a lot of employees here, and they should be proud of where they work, and you either bite the bullet and fix this place up and do it, or find some other place to be that's more efficient. But just kicking the can and not making a decision is not fair.
What's the square footage we'd need?
Yeah, what was the square footage we?
It's roughly 3,000 square feet of floor. So you're looking at the, and that
Here,
includes
right?
the basement space floor.
You don't
also.
need that much though.
No, but that's what exists here is 3,000.
I think here's 3,500. It's just over 10.5.
What?
And I think you identified at one point that we needed 5,000 to 6,000
Correct.
for the actual offices and employees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think when we were doing that, we looked at if you built a new building of that size, it was what, about $1.2 million?
Yeah, it was somewhere. I think they averaged somewhere around 200 to 250 a square foot.
Yeah.
I think a few minutes ago you said something about maybe going with department heads that are here right now and going through, maybe we ought to ask department heads to come up one by one if they choose to, and we could look at a couple of those sections for 5 minutes each or something.
Sure.
Because Martin, you're always here, and so we can do City Hall anytime, right?
Mhm.
Sonia's here, and
No, he's just going down the list.
Chief's here, and maybe we ought to just take them out of order and just, you know, because there's 3 or 4, not everybody's here. So we got 3 or 4 heads here, let's just maybe
Sure.
plow through those guys. And
Well, I think we can talk about this and make a decision. I mean, if we should be looking at something that you should know, like bring some options.
Okay.
Does the city need to own it? Can they rent?
That can be an option, I would think.
Yeah,
Or has that ever been questioned?
Yeah. The last time we went through the whole thing, like to lease, to rent, to own, multiple options of staying or going.
If you rent something, you're paying some taxes on it back to the city.
Yeah, the only thing that we looked at the time, as I recall, is that, you know, it kind of has to be a really good price because the city goes on forever, you know what I mean? So if you own something, probably where it's such a long-term thing, it might be better to own it, but that doesn't mean we couldn't rent if it was appropriate and it was priced right, but just kind of, I guess it's one of those things that, you know, presented with options, we certainly would look at anything, I'm sure.
And I don't disagree with you that we should have the department heads that are here to do it, but this right here gets pushed off and pushed off and pushed off every time because no one wants to deal with it. But this building is embarrassing and unsafe and should be addressed, and
I think one of the better solutions is in the hopper, which is potentially joining up with a school if they end up reconfiguring. Of course, we don't know when that's going to be. That's the major thing, but I think that's ideal is to.
I think
And I guess that's,
we workshop
and
this
that's,
maybe.
and I guess that's why I want to kind of move on because we don't know what that answer is yet and stuff. But
Well,
you
I'm
guys
not on that
want to,
committee, but we keep saying we're gonna do this or we're gonna do that, but we never do anything at all. So,
I question how, I think the option with the schools would work great, but I just question how long that's gonna take. And how many boats or boating sessions it's gonna take, and then your building and renovation. So, I think this is not right to put this type of money into this building.
I agree.
I mean, looking at the square footage, could we even look at moving the whole place and renting somewhere, say, for 5 years? And then reassessing and seeing where the school is, if that's still an option.
well, I think this is gonna be a huge part of our budget. Let's get some options and some timeframes from the school for our September meeting and workshop this, maybe even come in a little bit early to be able to look at what,
Well, it's,
maybe before the meeting, come in an hour early or something and workshop this, because this is a huge part of your budget.
no matter what.
And if you spend money here, you're just it's gone.
Well,
So-
and the thing too, Doug, is that if we move somewhere, we kind of identified last time, it's probably about $100,000 to move the offices and then the IT and all the things, so we kind of want to make it a good move somewhere that we're going to be for a while, because if we were only there a year or two and then go somewhere, I guess that was kind of the issue, is that we were kind of hoping other things would come along quicker than they have, and they haven't, and so we're where we are.
But you also have to look at, we could wait 5 years for the school thing could never happen.
That's right.
And then we've
Right.
dropped $100 grand in 3 fire escapes that on a building that who knows what's going to happen to it whenever we vacate it. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the school thing, everyone has their opinion on if that should happen, but just take
Oh, yeah.
that with a grain of salt that may never actually happen.
Oh, 100%, right.
Possible.
Yeah, let's workshop get some options, but let's workshop some ideas before our September meeting. I think that's, and then move on to whichever one of the projects under your project line of someone that's here,
Well,
and we'll go back.
I see one that's easy. Sonia's.
Which one there? Talk about library.
And that's page 41, and the detail is,
41?
yes.
Good evening, councilors. I'm Sonia Eiler. I'm your librarian. So the request that I submitted to the finance director and the city manager involves the concept that we began last year, which was to put money away for facility maintenance. And some of the examples that this money could be spent on: elevator repair. Just one repair would exceed our building maintenance budget that is generally allocated, so this money is set aside for those contingencies. The furnace, the security system, the automatic door opener, and roofing are some examples of some things that will need to be replaced eventually. I added a layer of somewhat complexity in that I've requested that we increase the number of cameras in our system. Right now we have 8 cameras inside the building, which is adequate. There are some areas that are not currently under surveillance. But I'm more concerned with the outside of the building, and there is 0 surveillance for outside. And I don't know if you've driven by the library, but it is used all night long, really. Either somebody sitting in their car or somebody sitting in their parking lot. We don't usually have an awful lot of problems with that, but we do have a population of people during the day that I believe probably would benefit from some surveillance. So that would be my focus for some of the money in the maintenance, is to increase our outdoor surveillance at the very least to protect the investment. The grounds, you may have noticed, have been improved exponentially, and that is about a 5-year plan to continue improving those gardens so that they're walkable gardens and it's a beautiful space. And with the amount of money that's been invested just in the ground, it seems to make some sense that when we can, to set up cameras to protect that as well.
I agree.
I have no issue with your request. I don't think 10,000 a year is enough for a building of that magnitude and grandeur. I mean, if just when you come to having to replace the windows or the roof or anything major there, it's gonna. So
I believe that you're right, Councillor. And Martin and I have had those conversations. It's not quite enough, and we want to get to the point where it is enough. But there's so many needs between all the departments that I kind of very gently move into that area because, frankly, $10,000 is like 100% improvement over 2 years ago. So I'm thrilled just at the foresight of that. But I do recognize that it's not really a reasonable number if we want to protect the investment completely, but it's a good step forward.
Any other comments? Kevin?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about industrial council since Tom's here?
Yeah, industrial council, which one?
And that's 23 and 24.
Should have saved the industrial council and the library for last, so we could be left here all happy. Sorry, Chief.
Oh, he's not speaking tonight.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good evening, Council. I'm Tom Powers, the Director of the Presque Industrial Council. So, on page 23 of your booklet, you'll see some of the projects that we have scheduled in for the 2019 year and what we're proposing to do. In a nutshell, you see a lot of different buildings. This year, in 2018, I think we've accomplished a lot of what I would call bang for your buck projects. Our spending has been such in 8 different areas that $10,000 here, $10,000 there has gone a long ways towards the improvement of the exterior and interior of these buildings, and I feel has greatly improved their curb appeal to whoever might be interested, or the tenants who are currently in them are appreciative of having that done. In 2019, I'll be honest, we won't be doing so many small projects, but the bigger stuff is chewing up big money. The surprises that we have is the cost of paving and how much area you want to pave. In our projects, we could probably chew up anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 next year easily on just doing the areas that should be done, not frivolous, just what should be done. Roofing. We're running into numbers on roofing that are just astronomical, whether it be the material costs rising, labor costs, a lot of work out there, so they're really adding on to their margins in order to, because they can. And we have some pretty big buildings. I'm looking at doing some preventative roofing in what would be the A&L Construction Building, which is a very nice building. I've got a quote for about $35,000 on the low roof of that area alone. IP building, just pretty much some preventative maintenance in that area. And between the paving and, it actually works out between the ground and the roof, you can spend $100,000 up there without even breaking a sweat, just to maintain what you have.
How big is that building, Tom?
90,000 square feet on IP. You couldn't even begin to start doing that whole roof. You have to take it in chewable bites,
Yeah.
and have to discern what is your best bite. The area I'm probably going to go into first is the loading dock area. I think I may be able to make arrangements to have that area be a new rentable space, and I may have a prospective person who'd want to go into that area. So I'll take that bite, another $30,000, $40,000 bite. We do have a quote for one of the projects. We own the FedEx building, which we lease, and it's about a 30-year-old building now. We were up on it a couple weeks ago, and we've discerned that we're at a point now that we can catch it by putting on a rubber polymer coating for somewhere between $50,000 and $20,000 to do, but that's substantially cheaper than the $100,000 plus job if you wait 5 years if you want to re-roof. So those are the kind of projects that we're looking at up at the industrial park. It's not as many small projects, but more 3 or 4 big projects that are going to chew $30,000 every time you say the word project there.
What kind of life does that polymer give you on?
We can get, at one quote was probably going to be around a 10-year warranty, and the other one's a 15. With that, you're comparing almost a 1/15 of the cost process to do, to carry that out for another 15. So now you're into a building that's a 45-year-old building, and you haven't paid out the big bucks. In the meantime, we are still setting aside in our reserves, you know, whatever it is, $5,000 or $10,000 for each project, so we aren't caught at the end of the project with not having the funds to be able to rehab this the way we want to. The other thing is, I do have a few buildings that probably the HVAC systems are in the 25 and 30-year-old range, and they're starting to show signs of something could be coming down the pike. I just as soon catch it now, where maybe the repair is $8,000 versus the replacement is $50,000, and so we're keeping an eye open for that as well. But if you have some specific questions on some specific problems, please feel free to ask. I'm doing a good job spending some of the money up on a road right now. There's an eye opener.
So every year it seems like we underfund you by $50,000 to $1,000 from what you ask. How is that impacting you? Like, as far as, are you getting behind because of being underfunded?
I will be honest, Mike, in that we've done pretty good with what we get. I think we've stretched it very well. The wall that I can see us running into is that I can't force a paver to take less than what they've quoted. I can't force a roofer to take less than what they've quoted. So these projects, as they become more expensive each year, I have less ability to make cost-conscious decisions with them. Mm-hmm. If they tell me it's going to be $100,000, I have to live with that. So the impact is you stay away from the $100,000 project because it just chewed your whole budget, and you have to ignore 8 other things. What's getting ignored are the big ticket items. That's a frank statement. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions, comments? I think we're quiet group. Dan, you have something? Oh, we're good. Thank you very much for
Very
coming.
good. Thank you, folks.
Might as well get the fire department out of the way.
What page is that on?
Starts at page 25 and goes to
52. 35.
yeah,
35.
So, yeah, 25, let the fun begin. If we can skip 25 and I come back to it, I'd really appreciate it, because that's going to put you on the edge of your seats. So we'll start with our Scott air bottles. The air bottles are what we put in our air packs. The firefighters can breathe air when they go inside of a building. Those have a 15-year life according to the US DOT. We have no control over that. At 15 years, we can't refill them anymore. So we've been over the years, as you can see on the second page behind it, we've been replacing bottles as they reach their 15 years. So it's really just a cycle. And not much we can do with that. That is AFG fundable, and so we will keep applying for those, and hopefully, and I'll give you a good story here in a minute when we go back to that. But the turnout gear is the same thing. NFPA standard says you replace turnout gear every 10 years. We don't do that. We don't have the call volume to justify replacing gear every 10 years. But what we do is an annual inspection to make sure the gear still meets NFPA standards, no rips, tears, missing zippers, missing Velcro, or anything like that. So as long as those are all in good, boots that have good tread on them, no holes in them, as long as they meet that inspection, we keep using them. We don't care about the age, to a certain point. So we don't hold ourselves to the 10-year standard. But on the flip side of that, with the NFPA standard there, AFG does recognize that standard. So if I want to get gear and I can show them I've got a bunch of gear that's 10 years old or 11 years old, so it's outside the NFPA standard, even though it's good usable gear, I can now apply to replace that gear, which we have done. 2 years ago, I think we replaced 15 sets for what it would cost us to buy one set. So we pay attention to that very much, and when we get enough so that we can apply for a grant, we do that. But what we try to do is keep that $5,000 every year in there, because if somebody rips a set of gear or destroys a set of gear, and it happens occasionally, you know, at a car accident or you get into some chemicals, then we need to be able to replace that gear. Or we get a new call guy who we can't find gear that fits because they're just bigger than what we're normally seeing, so we need to be able to put them into gear so we can use them. So that's what that one is for.
So one set of gears, 2,500.
It's it's about $2,000 now for one set of gear. The thermal imaging camera, we've always had 2 cameras. We've had one for the interior crew and then one for the backup crew or RIT crew. So if something goes wrong, we can go in and we can find those firefighters. We lost that camera due to its age, and it was a German made. We got it way back, I'm going to say 20 years ago, through a grant from Cole Foundation. It was one of the first ones they've ever made. That finally died. We've sent it to Germany a few times to get it repaired, but it finally died. And we're just looking to replace that so we can get back to having 2 cameras for the crews that are doing interior firefighting. These cameras also can be used, the PD's used them before to do searches in a building to find somebody in the dark. We've used them for search and rescue, like if somebody's lost child, you can use them for that. It basically will see through anything except if you put a blanket up in front of somebody, you no longer see them. But if they're running through the woods, you can watch them step for step.
I thought we got one of these.
We have one. We need the second one. Yeah, we never did. No, it didn't get funded. But there's another good story behind that one as well. The command vehicle, the chief's vehicle, the vehicle we use during the day for multiple uses. Right now we have a hand-me-down police cruiser. With the take-home package that they have now, those cruisers are really not available to us anymore. This vehicle's got some age and miles on it. It really needs to be replaced. A lot of the fire chiefs have gone to the same package that the sheriffs and the state use, the small SUV. They're about $27,000. Bar Harbor, I just talked to Chief Bartlett in Bar Harbor. He got his for $27,000. So we were asking for 36. That might be a little high, but I don't know how long it's going to take to get one, so it might be 36 by then. But that is something that's on the radar that needs to get replaced.
Why would you need that and a 4-door pickup? The
4-door pickup is what takes our crews to fire calls. It goes and picks up our, it picks up all of our hose. It brings air bottles back and forth to the station to be refilled during fire calls. But it also goes to the airport.
So it couldn't serve as a command vehicle as well?
It may not be there. It may be at the airport or it may be somewhere else.
You have one truck? More than one pickup?
Well, you could actually buy, are you asking to buy another pickup instead of an SUV or
No, no.
not buy
I'm saying,
anything?
do you have more than one pickup right now?
Yep, we have another single cab that has our brush equipment on it that is for brush fires, so we're not taking $600,000 fire trucks out into the woods and the fields.
Yep.
So in the summertime, if that goes somewhere and we have a brush fire, we treat it as a fire truck, really, to be honest with you.
So for passenger type vehicles, you have that new
Just the
four-door
Just the four-door vehicle.
and your two-door
And
truck,
then-
if you want to call that.
Yep,
And then your cruiser.
yep,
That's it.
that's it.
I'm not suggesting this exactly, but I guess my question is, how many miles a year do you put on a vehicle like that?
I use that vehicle to go to downstate to EMS meetings, fire chiefs meetings, trainings, and if the guys go to training, that's the vehicle they take as well. The two four-wheel drive pickups aren't the greatest on gas, so we try not to run them up and down the interstate. So that actually puts quite a few miles on it. We had some people that went to the academy. We got a guy going to Lewiston. We got a guy. So it travels actually quite a bit. I hate to say it, but it's.
So I guess I don't know. My question, I guess, would be: is that I know that you've been using a hand-me-down car from the PD, but the state sells the used police cruisers that are the vehicle like you're looking at, that at auction every year. Could we get one of those? I mean, it have some miles on it.
Car?
No, the SUVs.
Yeah, no, I have nothing against getting a used one. Not at all. When it comes time, that was our thought, was we will look to see what we can find, new or used. I don't have a problem with the used ones.
Yeah.
Not at all. But it's just, we gotta look to replace that car
At some point.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In last year's budget, we increased the replacement on cruisers. I don't understand why, just because the police officers are using them at home, we're still replacing the same amount of cruisers, and we're told that because they're driving them home and they're driving them as an individual versus everybody using the vehicle, that they're maintaining their value and being treated better and lasting longer. I don't understand why all of a sudden that's not an option.
We did, part of the reason is we're playing catch up with what we were putting in there. So we were caught in the predicament where we were buying funding for 2 each year to play catch up. The idea was to go to, and last year we funded, 2 years ago we only funded for one replacement. So if we stay on an even pace of 1.5 funding for 1.5 cruisers, that will catch us up to be on that longer replacement schedule.
To where something would be available, same as what you've always been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So can we combine this with the assessing vehicle need?
It's really a question of availability.
Yeah. Is it a
Yeah.
daily driver? You drive that every day?
Every day. Then air packs. The last time we replaced air packs has been, I'm going to say, in the neighborhood of 20 years ago. So they are at the age where they're 2 cycles behind NFPA. They actually, so we need to start looking at replacing them. They're a very expensive piece of equipment, but so because of their age, we're able to apply for an AFG grant because they meet the criteria for replacement. So in this year in the AFG grant, we applied for the Scott air packs, the bottles, and the thermal imaging camera. And as of today, we have not got our Dear John letter, which is a good indication that we may be getting this grant, which takes care of everything that we just talked about, except the
Can you
command
explain
vehicle.
what this Scott air pack is? Sir?
It's actually the harness, the regulator, the face piece that holds the bottle that allows the firefighters to breathe air. So, but at this point, we're still in the AFG grant, and it's late into the year, which is a good sign that we haven't got anything back from them to say we've been rejected. So our fingers are crossed, and if that happens, we've taken care of those things I just talked about. Other than we need to put some small amounts of money away every year, so when it comes 20 years from now again, we've got something in there to replace, because the AFG grants might not be there. Now, having said that, we could get rejected too. So that's why we've asked to start putting some money away so that when that day comes, we gotta replace them, we got something there.
How many do you have there?
Believe the number is 28 packs, 1 pack for each seat.
1 pack for each?
You're allowed to have 1 pack for each seat of your apparatus. So I think we have 28 air packs. And we have a total of 18, 30, 42 firefighters between career and call. But not everybody.
For every
uses an air
seat,
pack.
you're required to have it?
No, what I'm saying is for every seat, the AFG grant allows us to put in for an air pack for that seat. So we have 28, and I'm thinking that we actually asked for a few more because of our seat count. Because the ambulances, they allow us to have one, so we use those. We figured if we're gonna get them at 5%, it's not to hurt to ask. Even if you know what I mean, run them through a cycle. So our fingers are crossed that comes through, and then that takes a big relief from the CIP, and we can lower the numbers that we're asking for each year just to try to maintain. The next one is the ambulance replacement. We have 3 ambulances, and we're just asking for $50,000 to be put away every year to replace those in like a 4 or 5 year cycle.
So is that enough? That would mean each ambulance would be getting replaced every 12 years?
I talked to some other departments, and they're doing them every 3 years, which would mean, and most everybody that I talked to, as we showed you, has 3 ambulances, so they're doing it every 9. And I was thinking 4. I'm trying to push the limit so that we're not replacing these as much as we can. The problem for us is we started out with 2 used ambulances, so asking them to go 10 years might be pushing our luck. But my plan is the AFG allows fire departments to apply for ambulances. So next year's AFG grant, we've tried the truck 10 times for 10 years and we've been rejected. So I'm going to try the ambulance this time, see what, and maybe we keep our fingers crossed we can pull that off, and that'll help us get onto a cycle.
Might have to throw another used one in there to get on step.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually, in all honesty, other than the oldest one, we did have to put some pretty good money into that. The turbos went in it, and we learned a valuable lesson about service. We do the work ourselves now, but in all general seriousness, we've had very good luck with them. They have been dependable. So yeah, I would not hesitate to look at some used vehicles from other fire departments because we know what kind of service they get. And so yeah, that's absolutely, and we did really well with the cost of those trucks.
How old are the ambulances we have now?
Excuse me?
How old are the ambulances we have now?
Boy, that's a good question. I can't remember now. I think one's a brand new, it was a 2016 holdover, and the other 2 are 2008s. I believe they're both 2008s, 2009s. One of them, they actually put a brand new motor in it when they sold it to us. The other one came out of Massachusetts Fire Department. It had 120,000 miles on it, and that's the one we lost a turbo in. But since we fixed that, it's been a champ. We haven't had any issues with it. So
we got one new one and one that there are 2 that are 9 or 10 years old.
The only thing that, yeah, I'm not saying we ever have to have 3 brand new ones.
No, I'm just
2 new ones would be nice because if we can continue to do transfers, it's nice to know you've got a defendable vehicle to go up and down the road with. The last thing we want is a breakdown with a patient on the side of the road halfway to Bangor or Portland. But we've been using the 2008 with the brand new motor. Most everybody, when they go on a transfer, will take that one because it's a diesel, and the rest of them are, the other one, the new one's a gas. So we can make a trip to Bangor from our station down to Bangor, Eastern Maine, and back to our station and fill at SCD1, not have to stop for fuel. So we're actually saving a little money because we're not paying the road taxes we do when we pull into a gas station somewhere.
Martin, before budget time, can we add to this this document from each department head a list of equipment, the year, the make and model, and the mileage going into the budget season?
We have that.
They
That
have
has that
equipment
put
list.
together.
It would be nice to see by department because you got public works asks for trucks. You're trying to remember what year you replaced them, cycles and stuff. Just be good to see.
Sure.
Maybe somebody has something they don't even know they have.
Yeah, no, I wish, but I don't. Then we have the SCBA air station, which fills our air bottles. That's 12 years old. I mean, it's in good shape. It's not like it's got to be replaced, but we do need to start thinking about putting some money away. Those units today cost about 60,000. We fill for other fire departments ourselves, which we charge to fill other departments. So it's just something that we need to start putting some money away, because in the next 6-7 years, that probably is going to have to be replaced, and we haven't really been doing anything with it. That is also another AFG acceptable grant, so we might try that too when the time comes, if they still have the program. And then the big one is the 34-year-old Tanker 1. Yes.
Can I stop you? So you're looking for a command vehicle and a pickup?
Yeah, the pickup is a 2010. This is a CIP, so I mean, this is looking to fund this down the road. I don't want to wait until the day it needs to be replaced and come in and ask for it. So
is this the 2-door one?
that's the 4-door. We just replaced the other one last year, brand new. So what I'm asking is we put small amounts of money away, so when that one comes due, it's what, 8 years old now?
Yep.
So in another 5 years, it may need to be replaced, that we have something in there to replace it and not starting from scratch.
So the brand new one is the one that's got the brush stuff on it?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So Tanker 1 is a 3,000-gallon tanker with a 1,500-gallon.
Where did you go?
25.
Page 25. That's back to the first one. I'm sorry. It's 34 years old. It was rebuilt probably 20 years ago at a cost of $50,000. We put another $15,000 in the motor. And it's to the point now where we're very careful about when we take it and where we take it, because about every time it goes out, when it comes back, there's something wrong with it. We lost a fuel tank in it one time at a fire, and we had to have highway, thank God, come out and ratchet it back up into place and get it back home. It's the water tank's fractured 2 or 3 times. It's 34 years old. It's lived its life. It had an 18-year, when it was built, it had an 18-year service life. We're now in 34. This truck is and I try not to confuse you, we call it a tanker. It actually meets the definition by NFPA standards as an engine, which means it has all the hose, all the equipment, everything it needs to be a frontline fire truck to fight fires. That is also on our credit for ISO that says the city of Presque, for what we have, our population base, we're required to have 3 engines in their scoring system. We only have 2 engines, but we utilize T1, and they credit us that as an engine, giving us our 3 engines.
What's the population break?
What's that?
What's the population break?
I don't know what it is, and I'm not 100% sure that it's what the population has to do with it, but they look at your facilities, what you have in your community, the hospital, the nursing home, community colleges, large buildings like Key Bank, or whatever it is now. But so they look at what you have for protection areas and the amount of water it would take and the pump sizes that it would take to extinguish those fires.
So you said we have 2 engines. One would be the one that was replaced, what, 2 years ago?
That was done in 2016, yeah. 2012. That was done in 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
So what's our two engines plus this tanker 1?
You got engine 2, which is a 2001. You got engine 6, which is a 2012. And then ISO rates our tanker 1 as an engine, which is 1984.
Okay.
So a tanker, like tanker 2, is strictly hauls water. It has a pump to shuttle water from its tank to the fire truck, the engine, to fight the fire. Once that's empty, it gets back on the road, it goes to a hydrant, fills up, comes back, dumps its water. Our truck has 2 pre-connected hoses on it, that's it. No other hose on the truck, no equipment, no air packs, no nothing. It's basically built to move water from point A to point B. That's all it was designed for. And that was actually an AFG grant truck that the city got in 2007 through the AFG grant. So we paid 5% of the cost of that truck, and I think at that time that truck was $220,000. But it's just made to shuttle water, to get water from point A to point B. And very limited on how it gets rid of that water. One hose line or the dump tank on the back. That's it.
And why is 2 engines? I'm just so I understand, why is 2 engines for a community this size not enough?
You'd have to ask ISO.
Okay, but you as a firefighter, why is it
I would
not
be
enough?
very uncomfortable with 2 engines because if one goes down, now you have 1 engine. We have nothing in reserve, and that's what hurts us in our ISO rating is we have no reserve, and that's how they look at it. Okay, engine 2 goes down to have maintenance on it. You got 1 engine covering this whole community.
Yeah, but you have mutual aid.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you guys went out on mutual aid today.
Yep. We sent them a tanker. Nobody's going to send their engine. It's not very. I'm not. I don't send an engine out. I'm not gonna. I'll send you the water supply, but we can't afford to take an engine out of our town. What happens if we have a fire? How do I explain the fact that we didn't have the appropriate equipment to respond to?
Well, you wouldn't take both engines out. But
I don't even take 1 engine out.
But you've got 3.
I've got 2 because I wouldn't take the one that we were trying to get replaced across the road. That's what I'm trying to tell you is we are very selective of when that truck goes out because we know it's not coming back one of these days. And I'm not being a smartass, but that bad boy's 34 years old.
How many fires has it fought?
It doesn't matter how many fires it fought. 34 years old in northern Maine. It is rusted. It's got holes in it. We've put tin over it with pop rivets and painted them black so you can't see it when it goes by. The truck has lived its life. It has served this city well. Let it die in peace. That's
I'm not opposed to that. I'm not saying that it's not okay. You know that
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
perfect.
no, but
I
in
mean,
all
it was
honesty-
parked under cover and it wasn't used that much. And that, how many miles?
It's
is that?
still in northern Maine. When it goes out and goes to fire and comes back, it picks up all that winter calcium. It sits on those frames. We power wash all of our trucks every spring with the power washer to try to get all that stuff off in there. The new trucks, a lot of the trucks now have gone to a galvanized frame. Engine 6, the newest one, we went with a galvanized frame, and I don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years from now, but it's what, 6 years old now? And that frame looks like it's brand new. I mean, so the galvanized seems to be, hey, this might be the key to this. I don't know, but this poor truck has just, but it's
just a
served
matter
us
of
well.
what ISO says we have to replace it with. If it's a true.
NFPA won't even recognize this truck. That's the truth. Okay, NFPA says 12 years, truck goes into second out. After 15 years, it goes into reserve. After 20 years, it goes out of service period. That's NFPA standards. Okay, so they don't even recognize.
That have like 70s and 80s trucks kicking around.
You look at their
they got no
ISO
trucks.
ratings and you see their 8, 9s, and 10s, which is basically saying you don't have a fire department.
But it's meeting the ISO standard right now, parked in the garage. But you wouldn't take it across the street.
I wouldn't what now?
You wouldn't take it across the street, but it's helping us our rating right now.
Yes.
But we never use it, and we don't really.
Well, I shouldn't say we never use it. We use it when we have fire calls where we need it, we use it. But would I let it go to another community? No. No.
So when you get a call and it's outside the urban compact zone or it's outside the hydrant range, that's when you need it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Anywhere where the water supply isn't available from the hydrant, that's the truck we go. And when it was newer, we could leave the station with that as an engine with the crew in it and then bring T2. We're now traveling and pulling with 6,500 gallons of water to put out a fire. That's a lot of water. That's a good attack. So I mean, you know, it definitely has its advantages. It's just.
Yeah, no, it's just $600,000 we're talking
No,
about.
and I understand that, and I'm going to tell you right up front, I've already got a call that you're looking at a 3% increase. We've been using this 600,000 number for 5 years, and it's actually held. Right up until now, I'm here standing before you, and I get a call to say they're looking at a 3% increase, and it all depends on what this Tariff War does, if it has any effect on it at all, but they're expecting a 3% increase. Now, will it happen? I don't know, but that's what they're saying. We built, the truck I'm asking to replace is exactly what we have there now, except NFPA standards, and I'm actually taking a few things off in it to try to bring the price down. We have a portable tank, which is what we can dump water into that we can draft out of. T1 has one, T2 has one. We don't need to. So if I take that off, I take the dump tank off, I take the Zyco ladder rack hydraulic lift system off, I've lowered the price down as best I could, so we're basically getting just what we need, the basic.
This $600,000 truck replaces exactly what you have. What kind of value does your 2001 have? And we can do this later when it's budget, but if you just had, I can see the value in having an engine and a tanker all in one.
Yeah.
What size and how much would it cost to have a truck that would get you up to your ISO rating and be able to sell, if your 2001 still has some value, be able to sell it to put towards purchasing another truck, so we can get one more truck, get a truck out of our fleet and have two engines, but have one of them be...
We can't get rid of a truck because the truck that we're purchasing is an engine. It plays a dual role for me. If I go out into the country, I'm hauling 3,000 gallons of water. I got enough water to safely put people inside a building and begin firefighting while we get our mutual aid from other places to come and supply us with water. So
I'm just saying, if this truck was souped up a little bit more, would there be value in
there's
selling?
really nothing we could do. That truck would meet our needs today, and I can't see it not meeting our needs 20 years from now. It's pump size, it's water tank size. I don't think you can't go any bigger than that. You could, but it'd be pointless to go that. You're spending money and you're not really going to get anywhere with it. It's like I was saying.
Well,
if it
would save us from having to replace the 2001 5 years.
Well, here's the other thing to this, and I'll throw this out here for you. The question was asked: what happens if we don't replace this truck? That's in my own opinion, as fire chief, that's an awful bad mistake we'd make. But having said that, we replace this truck as what we're wanting to replace it with. The tanker. When that day comes that you may want to replace that tanker, I'm not sure I could stand here and make a solid argument why you need to replace it, because you've got that truck that can do multi-roles. I can now rely on other departments that do have tankers.
So how much is our tanker worth? Can we sell that?
Oh, you probably would get some interest from it. But here's the kicker. Even if you said, hey, let's go do this truck's a year away. By the time we spec it and get it built and go through the bid process and then get it built, you're not going to see it for a year. But is that a possibility? Absolutely. When it was here and we could put it into service, that's a discussion that you could have. And I'm not sure I can make a valid argument. As long as I know our mutual aid partners are going to bring one of their tankers, we can get away with it.
There's an AFG grant involved, and is that automatically applied for every year?
We have been applying for it. I've been chief since '06. I think we've been at least 10 years. This year we got rejected. Like, we put it in, and a month later we got a rejection letter, and it's like, holy cow, we've never been that quick. So the only other grant that so the only grant truck we ever got was in 2007. Now, I don't know if they look back and say, no, we just gave them a truck in '07, so I don't know if that plays into this or not. I honestly don't, and nobody will tell us that. They're very secretive of how they go about doing it.
So do you apply for the 19 year next year, or now, or are we blown out of the water? We got
no. Yeah, we're not going to get it. I am more than convinced, especially with the speed that they threw this out this time, it's not going to happen. So we're going to refocus on what other areas we think we can get, like the ambulances, okay? So those are fairly decent ticket items too. So if we can get the AFG grant to pay 95% of that cost, that's probably where we ought to target, because I think it's more reasonable that we could meet their needs, or they would be more acceptable to that.
And just to recap, the reason the ISO ratings are important is because if they go up, the insurance you pay on your home, your building, or whatever goes up.
They go down, right?
Yep, the lower our number, the better that means we scored. So we were a 3, and I guess I gotta tell you this, and we actually just got re-audited, and we're gonna be moving back to a 4. We originally were a 4, we did some things, we got it down to a 3. They've changed the rules, and they re-inspected us, and we're back up to 4. And I met with Frank from the Water District, and we were able to do some things and show some paperwork and show some flow tests that got us a few more points back. But where we really got hurt bad was on our dispatching. And I honestly, we fought with them for as long as I could, and they just said, don't call us no more, because our dispatch, and don't get me wrong, is a good dispatch, okay? Absolutely good. But in their eyes, it doesn't have 911, and it's because it's not a 911 dispatch center. But in their eyes, because it doesn't, we get penalized for that.
The difference, for clarification, the PSAP versus 911.
Exactly. So I had the PSAP director.
Okay, you're speaking letters. Explain that to us.
Okay, the public answering safety point. So when you call 911, it goes to a PSAP center, which is the 911 answering service. So for Rooster County, it's Penobscot. So when you dial 911, it goes down to their communication center. Then they call our dispatch and give us where it's going, where the directions are, what it's going, and we all go en route. The communication center stays on the line the entire time until EMS or fire arrives if need be. But they will not give us any credit for that, because they only will score what our dispatch does. So we have to look at what the cost to do the systems that they want, and I don't think it's honestly is a viable thing. So I don't see us ever fixing the dispatch issue through how ISO rates us, because
Your
it's
dispatch is the same as police. Our police dispatch and the fire is all the same, all in one.
It's, and the big issue here, and just to clarify this, 20 years ago, the PSAP and the dispatch were all in one. So when you dial 911 from your home phone, it would ring for each town directly right to their dispatch. So a lot of these small towns, when you had dialed 911, there was actually hopefully someone sitting in the fire station taking that call so the ambulance can get that. The state made a big push to centralize, to save money, to be efficient. So when you dial 911, there was only, what the goal of the state was about 15 years ago, is to reduce it so it's one PSAP. It was a New Hampshire model. So New Hampshire, anywhere in the state, when you call 911, it goes to one specific location, then gets put out to the dispatch location for each individual town. So the state wanted to reduce the number of PSAPs and have one really good system. Well, they never did quite reach that goal.
16.
So essentially one for, it's not one for each county, but some of the larger areas. But they were drastically reduced, and I was in a town when that happened, and we had to reduce that. So through their rating system, they want to see that there's no call transfer happening, so it just stays in that one location. That's not going to be feasible. We can't go back. The state won't allow us to be reinstated as a PSAP dispatching center. So that's where the major disagreement
Right. The
happened.
argument I have with them is okay, so it goes to Penobscot. Penobscot has to call us by landline to let us know there's an emergency, or they have to call us by radio to let us know. It's the same thing when it goes into our dispatch. That's not how they see it, though.
I don't understand. So Caribou has the same issue.
Same issue, yep.
So everybody's ISO ratings are going up because of the Penobscot Center.
Theirs is already higher than ours, but it potentially, with this new grading system, it could vary. I don't know what their score is, where they were, but we were the only 4, and then we were the only 3. Now we're back to 4, and I believe they were a 5. But don't quote me on that. I can check into that. But at the time, we were one of the lowest in Aroostook County.
And you're saying that this will cause everyone's insurance to go up?
I don't think going up that 1, it's going to put us back where we were, is going to be a major hit. If we go 2, I know we have received calls from the public before that they misidentified their ISO rating by 2, and it was like a $200 increase in their bill. And luckily, they called their insurance company to say, why did my insurance go up $200? And they found out the reason is their ISO rating was wrong. We sent a letter to the insurance showing them where their location was, what our ISO rating was for that area, and they were willing to fix it. So it really hits industry and commercial more than residential. They get hit, but the real people that get hit are commercial properties and businesses.
When we've looked at this before, just to be clear, not all insurance companies, not all underwriters use ISO as a standard to predict what your insurance rates are going to be. So we can't, I can't honestly say that that ISO rating, whether it be great or be downgraded, is going to affect your insurance rates.
One of the things you can look at yourselves as a community is what our fire dollar loss is each year, and do we see it start to creep up? And if it starts to creep up, you're probably going to see the insurance premiums creep up.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at, we're pretty steady. We're really not seeing a lot of fire loss. That's good for us because that gives us a better rating for your insurances. But when you see departments that usually have a room and content fire that end up being either a total loss or major damage, they have a much higher fire loss than we do.
So is there any other entities that use an ISO rating besides insurance companies?
Not that I'm aware of.
If there are any other questions for the chief, we'll move on to the next category. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
I think we drilled you sufficiently. Planning development.
Ken, do you want to speak about planning and development?
16 through 21.
It's pages 16 through 21.
Good evening, Ken Owen, Planning Development. Just real quickly, a number of years ago, the City Council asked that we set aside monies and have what we call shovel-ready projects, so that we'd have the money to hire an engineer to get something laid out in order to get a project going. So we've been doing that, and that's just sort of an ongoing thing. We've got, right now, according to this, we've got about $30,000. I don't know how much you folks use engineering firms or architectural firms, but it doesn't take too much to use up a $10,000 bill. So, there's that in there. I think it's absolutely necessary and should be continued. The bike path one we've gone through in the past. The city needs to come up with approximately 30,000. The state still has not awarded us the funds for the bike path, and where the bike path is actually going is still in question. So we're working on that. There's $55,000 in there for downtown master plan and comprehensive plan. We're updating, or we need to update the downtown master plan. It was done last in approximately 2006, 2007. A lot has been accomplished against that, and so I think that we're looking at what the next phase is. For example, the next phase might include expanding the asphalt onto the other side of the pavilion where it's now gravel. And as Tom said, asphalt isn't cheap, and so to do a lot, but we need to have some funds set aside for that. The planning board also wants to do something. They want to switch from zoning districting, which is the way we've done things for the last, I think Martin said 1979, so we've been doing that same process. They want to do something now called form-based codes. It's a great concept. To be honest with you, I think the city needs to hire, if they go that route, the city needs to hire somebody that has experience in form-based codes to do that sort of update. And the municipal comprehensive plan, we're updating that in a sort of a piecemeal fashion where we're using department heads to prepare different sections that apply to them. We're also relying upon people outside of the city to do volunteer writing. Some people from the Cooperative Extension Service, for example, are doing our agricultural section. We've got people from the Water and Sewer District, Public Utilities doing that. My point is that when somebody's doing something on a volunteer basis, it's hard to say what the timeline's going to be. But in any case, when we finish that update, which I anticipate will be the latter part of this year, the beginning of next, we are going to need to do some mapping, which we need to have some funds for. So that's why that talks about funding for $55,000 for the master plan, the comprehensive plans, basically to do those types of things. I've been here before the council before with regards to the public infrastructure downtown. I still think that we need to be setting aside funds to improve a lot of those hazards that are downtown. I don't think anything has changed on that over the last 2 years or so. And we need to make investment, particularly in those bricked areas and in the sidewalk areas, which are really trip fall hazards and need to be addressed. Echo Lake, we own that little sewer system at the south end of the lake. The city does. We have done a number of infiltration and inflow studies there. There's a water problem getting into that system somewhere. We've cambered it, done a lot of different things, waited for different seasons of the year to figure out what the flows are. We have not resolved it, but we need to resolve it, because the prize at the end of it is that the Public Utilities District, once we get it tightened up, is interested in taking care of it. And it should be a system that's taken care of by the Water and Sewer District and not by the City of Presque, because we really don't have the qualifications or experience or equipment to do what needs to be done there. So I think that's it. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Scott. Is there council stomach to do one more department, or?
Might as well, why not?
Yeah, great.
Here.
I saw Scott come in,
Brett,
and there's Chris.
Parks and Rec.
Chris, yeah.
Don't fight. Uh, 42, I believe.
Very tan of you playing on a splash pad?
Sorry?
You're tan, are you playing on the splash pad?
Yeah, I wish. Chris Boyer, the Director of Rec and Parks. Good evening. I'm 42, is it 42?
42.
I generally, with our CIP for the rec department, I break it up into about, I think, 5 different sections to help, it helps me organize it a little bit. And one of those, the first section that's listed is vehicles. And basically anything that we drive, we list in this category. And I'm just going to go through stuff for next year that I'm looking at, and if anybody has any other questions, we can go dig a little further. But we've got the forklift at the Forum. It's 30 years old, and we refurbished it once already, and it's it's limping along, and it's come time that it should be replaced. The other project, the other piece of equipment there is an overseeder. It's basically, if you're not familiar with that, it's basically, we would be utilized in the larger grassed areas where you would basically insert seed into the ground multiple times in a season, or not in a season, but 2 to 3 times, at least a couple times anyways, during the warmer months. And it would really, it keeps your grass strong and looks so much better. We've, with the soccer field now near Riverside, you saw it this summer how terrible it was, just from not getting enough good grass taking hold, and we don't want that to continue. And we think that this is certainly a piece of equipment that would be well used throughout all of our places, the ball field and Mantle Lake and everything.
Do you think we need to give that field another year to get established?
I would if I had a place to do soccer.
The school wouldn't let us behind maybe the high school? Or
Yeah, I don't know if there's really any options. There's really aren't any good options. There's no parking. We couldn't do it at Pine. I've thought about that because of the parking with school.
Bathroom facilities.
But, you know, yeah, even if we did a porta potty, but it's the parking piece there.
it seems like we destroyed our field.
No, I
last fall.
don't disagree. The soccer does a job, and but we've been looking around. We've talked to the university, and we so far have come up with nothing. We do use the NMCC. They have a field that we use for our flag football, so we're fortunate to be able to rent at a small price to be able to utilize that facility. But other than that, so we're still trying to come up with a plan, but soccer season's coming right up upon us, so we're going to have to do something.
So bad, too.
Moving on, the next section I have is the forum, because it's such a large facility. It certainly takes quite a bit of investment with capital. Things for next year, the bathroom partitions in the front bathrooms, they're terrible condition, and they really need to be replaced. And $10,000 might seem like a lot, which it is a lot, but you'd be surprised how expensive they are. The heating system, right now we have about $72,000 in reserve, and the plan is to put some money over the next few years to get to the point to replace that heating system. And the last price we had was around $330,000 for that to replace it. So, and we're working on that anyways, and coming up with the best efficient process and project that'll be, that'll serve the building well, with the difficulties with with heating the front of the building and the rear of the building, but not the middle of the building. So there's some things that we need to figure out. And the other piece I'd like to see done next year is the rear lobby, and put some flooring down there, rubber flooring, because the majority of the season, or well, all of the winter season, it's utilized for skaters and hockey players, and it's just dirty and nasty to keep up with the mats, and you just can't keep it clean, and it looks terrible. And if we had a permanent rubber flooring, we could utilize that year round. It'd be utilized in ice, with skates, without skates. Easier to clean, and it looks so much nicer, and I think it would really add to the facility.
Chris, just for if you could explain to me, help me remember, one of the major driving forces for the heating system was the need to replace the tank.
Right, and we did get a little reprieve. We had understood it had to be replaced in 18, but we've been given a couple more years, so it sort of took
by
that.
the DEP, or
it's from the state. So we got we talked to the right person, and he made a call and got back to us right off and said, no, you're okay for right now. So he's basically indicated we'd have a few more years. Which is, and to go back, Martin's referring to the underground tank that we have at the facility, that their life cycle is so many years, and ours we had anticipated being up this year, but it's not. So
This is fuel?
Yep, fuel tank. Yep.
Fuel oil?
Yep. And the other piece with the facility is we have this huge boiler that heats the front of all the way to the front of the building, and then the rear of the building. But in the wintertime, it doesn't heat the middle, but it pumps the hot water, or pumps that heat to the front of the building through 300 feet or whatever it is of cold air. So it doesn't seem to be real efficient, or it isn't real efficient, because you're heating two separate spaces. So and we've been talking to some contractors with different ideas, and none of them have come to the same conclusion or same quite plan. So that's something we're going to keep working on. So, moving on, I've got the bike path paving project. We try to do a small section every year, and it's worked well since I've been here. The price of, as Tom mentioned earlier, the price of asphalt is going up, and it's certainly reflected, in our budget. So actually, typically we pave St. John Street all the way to Main Street, and it goes through the university. We usually do that in one piece, but so I cut that in half basically, so that we would just do half of that next year and then do the other half the following year, due to the high cost of that. But generally, that's about how much we use. 1,000 to 1,500 feet of paving we try to get done each year on the bike path. Manor Lake, just a number of things that we'd like to see there. It's certainly a park that is important to the community, and we want to make sure that we're keeping that up as best we can. Certainly, there's a lot of the features up there are showing their age. The playground, for one, is a little over 20 years, and it's certainly it's getting ready to need for replacement. And we know now that we're going through this playground project to Riverside, that playground equipment is not cheap. So I would think that this would be over a couple of years, and certainly there's an opportunity to do some fundraising. Not that I'm excited to do any of that.
Got your fill.
I've had my fill of that, but these are types of projects where you're more likely to get money from donations. So it'd be foolish not to have some type of plan like that.
I think we should fund the water fountain up there,
I do too.
because the old pump water, used to be able to run, and you've got a bike path, and people are,
Right, it would
I
be
don't know
used
about
all the time.
other people that run, but halfway through my run, I like to have a drink of water.
Yeah. Well, and even for the pets, that are, people take their pets, and of course they'll go to the lake, but some of the kids too probably drink out of the lake. But so there's a water fountain there. We've had that pump gone for several years. The Manor Lake, the pavilion, we've got plans. Well, we've had plans for the last couple of years to take that down, or at least portions of it, and replace it. And it's in the plan to happen this summer again. But we don't think we have quite enough to complete it. So we're looking to do another 10,000 to make sure that we get that done.
Are the folks that kind of offered to partner somewhat and on some donations, they still are in the picture?
Yeah, well, we're back on that trail again, but
Okay.
we believe so. So because right now I've got, I think, 11,000 for that, but then there's the restitution money, and I'm hoping that we can put that together to do those pieces, and then with those donations or those folks that can help, we'll be able to get that done, I think. And then the other piece is the basketball court. I've talked with my advisory board, and we've obviously lost our basketball court on Main Street. We have one at Peace Park, which isn't as centrally located as, of course, Main Street was. But the thought is to take one of the tennis courts at Manor Lake Park and put a basketball court. And the tennis there is, 2 courts, I think, is really for the use is sufficient. And we do also have the university tennis courts. So, that's the idea we're throwing around. And the advisory board, wants to think that's a good plan. We've talked a lot about having to replace that other court anyways, and where would that go? This would certainly be a cheaper way to go.
Do you think the state would give us credit for it?
No, I don't, because it's already a park.
Right.
What Mike's referring to is that due to the fact the basketball court on Main Street, there was federal money tied to that that helped us. It was the Parks Department and Conservation. So they gave us money to construct that. And so when
$1,500.
$1,500 to construct that park. So what they want us to do is to construct a brand-new basketball court to be in compliance with the original agreement that was signed sometime in the 70s. In the 70s. So they will not help towards funding it, but they want us, in order to be eligible for funding in the future, they want us to put a additional basketball court to replace that.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be a basketball court, but it does have to be something park recreational. But it has to be something new that we don't already have.
So like
What about the new section of bike path?
Well,
if we get there.
Or the new playground?
New playground, no, because it's already part of, the Riverside's already part of a.
New rec center?
has to be on a new parcel of land. Chris and I met, and I think some members of your
But the-
advisory,
Ball field?
that they
No,
would not,
we already had it. It's already been this has to be,
even though
and the rec center doesn't count because it's inside.
But
Has
the
to be an
playground's being
outdoor.
built over what used to be a parking lot.
No, it just doesn't, because it's part of,
Because
it
it's
was
a
part of
playground.
Riverside Park, which was part of one of these,
We have a nice shuffleboard.
outdoor recreation.
Ooh, we should
Can we put a
Build
hoop
up.
up at your maintenance garage?
We don't own any property up
Who's
there.
That's
policing? What's the
thinking-
fine?
they're,
Well, we won't,
We
we
give them
can't.
back their $1,500
We
bucks.
won't be eligible, no, believe me, we asked that, and, but our ability to get any more funds through the outdoor recreation, that,
the perfect
really,
example
it's
that,
insane, but that's the way it is.
the example that was offered to us is in the city of Portland, they have the field that the Sea Dogs play upon. And so that was part of the original grant when that was first constructed way back when. So the city of Presque, the city of Portland, essentially sold that park. So it's privately operated, what I should say. So the city of Portland has been having a long discussion is that they have to replace 10 acres of land with outdoor activities. So we're only talking about the size of a basketball court we have to replace. So we have to look at what the value of that property was, have a red paper assessment it's called, and have some piece of property of that equal value that's new, that's not in their deed. We have to replace it with that. So the city of Portland is looking at replacing 10 acres, 15 acres with the same assessed value that was with something equal. Now, I know what an acre of property goes for in Presque. I can only imagine in Portland. So there has been a long ongoing legal debate on what they have to do to make that happen. And one of the questions Chris and I asked is, can we just pay back the $1,500? And the answer is no. There's no provision in there to make that happen. So it's been something we've had multiple meetings about, and it looks like we have to identify a new piece of property for free outdoor recreation to the public. Doesn't have to be a basketball, but has to be something equivalent value.
I just think we're doing so many things that we can't have owned the property before the 1970 date.
It can't be listed in their inventory, and so they have Mantle Lake Park, and they have Bishop's Island, and also Peace Park, and I think Veterans Park is included.
Yeah, there's like 5 different pieces. Riverside's there's a couple, because Bishop's is one and Riverside's another. Mantle has a piece, and yeah, so
There's got to be a solution to that costs $1,500.
Do you think, like, the more access
well,
to
and it's
land
not
around-
the cost. It's got to cost us a lot more than $1,500 because it has to be the value of what the property was when we got rid of it.
Do you think the more access of land around Mantle might solve that?
Well, that was where I was leading to, is there's a lot of opportunity for some more trails for up there, and actually we're meeting with Frank from the we've talked with Frank from the Water District. We're going to talk some more. We're actually meeting with Tamick I think next week to talk, because they have a lot of property there as well. So there's opportunities. That would be the best opportunity to do some trail work, to add some trails, to help us get off of that
We've acquired
issue.
some property down by the ball field and stuff too, that's in excess of 1 acre. And so if you had something that was like a batting cage or something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you tie what we've already paid for property post 1970 and do something. You
Well,
know,
we are certainly try to
should
do
be
whatever
able
we
to
can.
be creative on
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
Keep it in conjunction with what we're already doing.
yeah. So
That's crazy.
that's Manor Lake. And I think the last thing I have is really some general park improvements for many of the other spaces that we have, and a couple areas that really need some attention. And one is Peace Park. And speaking of the basketball court, it needs some crack filling and a paint job, and it's very pricey to do.
Does it
And
get used that much though?
Yeah, surprising. I drive by there.
it does, and it does, and I think it's a part of town that doesn't have enough of these things, and I think it's important that that's there.
Does that piece of land have some commercial value to it too?
Well, that's
It's at the end of the
Tom
runway.
left, so.
Oh, you can't build much.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can build anything there because of where it
Okay,
is,
yeah.
yeah. The other piece there is the playground. There was a playground there, and we would like, there's some swings still there, but we'd like to put a playground back, but the idea was we'd look into one of the cedar-style playgrounds, and whereas the use isn't going to be quite as intense as it is in some of the other parks, whereas I think it would last a little longer. I think if we had a cedar playground at Mantle, it wouldn't have lasted 10 years, but due to the way, for the usage. So
You mean more of like a residential as opposed to a?
yeah, but they
commercial?
still have a little more commercial, a little more beef to them, but there's still a lot of people go to that little area. It's a nice little spot. So, and the other piece is the gazebo down at Riverside. More and more people are down there, and you can, the roof needs to be redone and replaced, really. So
Could we put metal on it this time around?
you could, but it doesn't look as good.
Oh, the colors. I just think, color of it, might be festive.
Could get to match the building across.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It needs to be redone. So, and that's what I've got for next year.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, first.
Don't forget
So I
the
get it
water-
all.
Don't
Thank
forget
you.
the water fountain.
Yeah.
Quitting on this, or are we doing more?
So we got these three. I gotta leave at 8:20.
Oh, wait, we have 40 minutes then. Okay.
I think we should
Let's
save some
move
time
on
for
then.
that stuff.
Next item of new business is closing City Hall early so that the employees can attend their employee appreciation picnic on September 12th.
September 12th, correct. So this is basically allowing people to go home, pick up their family members, and attend the employee picnic. And this year, we're going to have our own, we're going to be cooking in-house. Chris Perkins is going to be doing barbecue for us this year.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve closing non-essentials offices on September 12th at 3:30 PM for employees to attend the Employee Appreciation Dinner.
Motion by Randy, second by Craig. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Was that too fast? Manager's report. Seeing none, we'll move on.
Two quick items. Next meeting in September, we're going to follow along with looking into the future. We're going to look at our 5-year fees for the various departments. We've also had requests from groups. Chris and I attended a meeting along with some other counselors to look at ice fees. The adjustments that were made seem to be a little bit out of the market, so we're going to take a look at the form ice fees. And also, we've had a request to look at long-term rentals for the Riverside Pavilion. Right now, it's $50 a day, and there have been some groups during the off-season that have been wanting to use it for longer periods of time to sell Christmas trees, so they wanted to do a long-term rate. The other one I have is we did a press release about this, but I just want to mention this to viewers that are watching us. On September 5th, they're going to be Spectrum is going to be upgrading their lineup to a digital-only signal. So you're going to need a digital converter for your TV. You just can't take your cable at home and plug it into your TV and still receive this channel. So due to the fact they're moving everything to cable to a digital, they're also going to change the channel that we are going to be on. So based upon if you have a cable box at home or not, or a digital converter, sometimes it's channel 6, sometimes I've seen it on 1300, but the permanent station that they're going to use is 1302 is where we're going to be placed upon.
For the city council meeting?
For the public access. So 1302 is the magic number now. So that's my manager's report.
That's an awesome manager's report, Martin. The announcements are, number 1 is that the papers can be taken out for 3 seats. The city council will be up for election in November. 1 one-year seat and 2 four-year seats. Papers are available now for people that wish to participate and step up and run for city council. 75 signatures?
75 signatures?
I believe it's 75 signatures that someone needs to collect from
150, yes.
from Presque residents, and you can take out, papers are available to take out now, need to be returned by September 7th in order to be eligible to run and be placed on the ballot for the November election. So hopefully we'll have lots of people, lots of participation. If you're interested, come to City Hall. And the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Presque City Council is on Wednesday, September 5th, 2018 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall.
Madam Chair, I would move to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056E to discuss negotiations.
Second.
Motion by Randy, second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thanks for coming.